there are things on one end of the spectrum that are basically just throwing software at the problem and saying, we hope that fixed it well enough for you. Good luck. At the other end is a very expensive, purely human model, which is sort of a one-to-one outsourcing approach to leave management. And the core thesis to Tilt is that there's actually a better answer, which is there should be intelligent software that helps give your company leverage to manage leaves at a lower cost with higher compliance and a better experience for managers, employees, and everyone involved in the leave, and human support. And that there's a human layer to that. And there's two reasons for the human piece. One is that you need humans to keep up with the evolving landscape that is leave. When the next state that is considering a paid family leave sort of mandate moves that into law, and you have a question, hey, how are we going to comply with that? We have some employees in that state. The answer isn't just like, I don't know, just trust the software. The answer is our experts have vetted how that law influences your approach to managing leave within your policy. The second reason it's really critical is that we believe that there is a part of leave that always needs to be human. And I'll give a very sad example, but I think it's one that'll resonate, which is people face when a parental leave turns into a bereavement leave. And we don't think that's the moment for software. We think that's the moment for humans to step in and interact with humans at what might be one of the hardest, if not the hardest moment of their life. And that's what I think really differentiates us, on top of Tilt being very focused on the value to our HR partners that are our customers, is what is the human piece that we can't leave on the side.
Where do you feel like you see on that human side, the emotion side, where do you feel like without a solution you see HR teams miss most often?
I think on the human side, when HR teams don't have a robust solution, is that great intention doesn't always get paired with great execution. And I think we need to give a ton of credit to HR teams. That's not because they're not trying. It's because leave is complex and really hard. So if you are especially a small HR team or a HR team that says, boy, I wish we had more resources, you're combing through trying to figure out, hey, what are the specifics of paid family leave in Michigan? Because we've got a few employees there and I'm trying to get this right. And usually that means that you lost the capacity to focus on where is the employee at? What is their experience around leave? How can they successfully go on leave? And then hopefully also successfully return from leave. And so I think it's just the complexity, the scope and scale of it are what allow Tilt to be more than software, but rather a full solution that shows up as a partner to HR and extension, so they can focus on the most critical parts while we ensure that they have accuracy, compliance, and manage the administrative elements of leave.
We talked a little bit about LSM support and how the human side of Tilt helps the employee. Can you think of some examples of how our CSMs are helping to support HR, and in what aspects they are kind of seen by some of our partners as an extension of their team?
Yeah, so our customer success managers, we have a great team of those individuals that are constantly thinking, what is the definition of success for our HR customers? And that can be everything from considering how a policy around leave at the company level is evolving and how Tilt is going to support through that evolution of a policy, to the fact that Tilt is in a privileged position to have a bird's eye view across so many company policies. So we see a lot of best practices and a lot of ways, whether it's adapting around new paid family leave laws at the state level or complexity at the federal level as a company grows or is expanding geographies. We can be thought partners about how do you manage that? How does that fit into your approach to leave as a company?
Can you also touch a little bit on how, if we're talking about a true partnership between Tilt and HR, how HR can help sort of shape what leave management software looks like? It's a relatively new, sphere that we're in, but how can HR help partner with a company like Tilt to kind of bring their vision of what leave management could be to life?
Yeah. So there's so much opportunity that we regularly pursue with our customers and prospects that we speak with to understand what would make this even better for you. And for us, we need to go back to what is going to make them successful in their job. One of the ways I like to sort of unpack it is what's going to be on their performance review. And for some HR professionals, if they're a leave specialist or something like that, they might have very specific things. Or for some others that are a dream team of one managing HR for an entire company by themselves, maybe their boss hasn't even thought about it. Either way, you need to get the basics right. And that's compliance and that's efficiently managing the administrative elements of leave so that then you can focus on the human pieces of it. And that's where we love to hear feedback across all of those different parts. Everything from, hey, it would be clearer in our compliance with this state paid family leave law if you all showed this information. Great. That's what we love taking so we can go improve our product. Or, hey, we got some feedback from a manager that a different approach to preparation for leave could be really useful. We love that feedback too. At the end of the day, Tilt exists to solve the leave challenges for companies. We are successful when leave is becoming a success factor for your company.
Have you heard of a specific example of maybe a situation in which Tilt really did help a company or an organization when they were trying to make some of those strategic decisions about policy or, how they were handling leave in general? It's okay if you can't.
Yeah, put you on the spot.
I don't think I'm going to give
That's
you.
Okay. That's okay.
I'll dodge it.
Not in the weeds quite enough there. I want to ask not to derail this conversation too much. Gabe, do you have anything related to this before I ask it kind of?
Go ahead.
Off-topic?
Yeah.
I want to ask what drew you to Tilt? What about Tilt or the way that we solve this problem kind of inspired you?
So when I first heard about Tilt, it immediately resonated because I was previously the chief operating officer at a company that was growing from a few people in 2 offices to over 100 people across international geographies. And I remember distinctly, we were working to manage the leave of an employee in California, a notoriously complex environment for getting leave management correct. And with the best intentions, we looked at all the forms. We think we can do this. We're going to give it a swing. And so we tried to do it in-house. And fortunately, we didn't make any errors that we couldn't recover on, but it was far from smooth. And I still feel bad about that because that employee was going out on parental leave and they deserved an amazing experience going out on leave so that they could focus on this new chapter for their family and a smooth reentry when they were rejoining us at the end of leave. And it wasn't. And they were kind. They gave us a lot of grace. And I immediately saw this has to be done better. And then when Tilt came along, I really saw that manifested as a solution.
Yeah, you touch on something there, which is that most people who get into HR are empathetic, and you were a COO, so you weren't even in HR. Not that COOs aren't empathetic.
Notoriously unempathetic.
Yeah. a leave of absence is such an opportunity for a relationship with an employee and an employer to go sideways because it is so personal and so complex, and they're like snowflakes. Even if you think they all look the same, they can be quite different. And when we talk about how just relying on technology is probably not going to get an HR professional across the finish line to provide the level of service required for a leave, what sort of pressure, I know you will sort of all be kind of putting on our HR hat, but like what sort of pressure you felt it in that position, does that put on HR, and how does the right solution sort of alleviate that perhaps?
Yeah, I think that the main piece is that you have to have a solution in place that's going to help you get the basics right so you can earn the right to be really strategic on your employee experience around leave, because it's complex. The regulatory elements are significant, and making errors has high risk, including lawsuits, and otherwise. And so while you're trying to avoid that stuff and move towards how do I really accommodate this person and show them that this company does care about them, that's what the opportunity is. And I'll actually share an example for me from my experience. I once joined a job, and 2 weeks in, a family member of mine got very sick and ended up in the ICU for a month. And that employer decided to embrace that there was elements that already existed in their bereavement policy, and that they could find ways to point to how they could offer me some space so that I could make sure I was taking care of my family. And at the end of that leave, even though I'd only been in that company for about a month and a half, I couldn't have been more loyal. And that all came from them betting on me to say, like, let's extend the most generous approach to leave possible. And for that, I was at that company longer than I've been at any other company in my career.
Yeah, there definitely is so much to say about how your company shows up for you when you need them the most. And, we've heard Jen say it, we've said it. You definitely are way more likely to stay when you know that they care and are willing to spend the resources and the care that you need.